The ransom letter in the JonBenet Ramsey case has been one of the biggest mysteries, or maybe not one of the biggest mysteries out there, but it's always a point in this case that I come back to, and we're going to talk about it in today's video. So then I was sitting there working on the computer and I start scrolling across my little news feed about this data breach that went down. And it took me a second, but I'm like, wait a minute, I've used them to like pay bills and stuff. And, so then my mind starts going like, okay, do I need to be concerned about this? Because a lot of times I'll brush it away, but this was also on the heels of that whole debacle that went down with the national public data breach, right? So I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, hold on, wait a minute, let's figure out what's out there, right? So later on, I'm like, you know what? Let me just see. Let me Google the Sofa Squad, okay? Let me get all up in and see what's going on now. Y'all be surprised what's out there now. Now, I get that the Sofa Squad is public and whatnot. Yeah, but have you ever Googled yourself and like started looking at stuff? It's shocking. I even Googled Bo and Luke. And the things those boys got up to at one point, I was like, look, they're just some good old boys. They didn't mean no harm. Then the straw that broke the camel's back for me was a refi that I did, I don't know, a couple of years ago now at this point. Yo, when I tell you, my phone number has never recovered from that, okay? Literally, even recording a second ago, spam came in, right? Literally, I sit here and have to go on and do it every single time. Now, they come in waves for me, and that is where Aura, who's sponsoring today's video, comes into play. Now, you might be like, what's Aura? Is that like a place? Is that those green things in the sky? Is that a bird? I'm getting ready to tell you to settle down, Lord. Aura offers a comprehensive suite of tools to help combat all these things. They're going to help you protect your personal information and enhance your digital security. Now, my favorite thing, their data opt-out service, chef's kiss, y'all. So what it does is it helps remove your information from data broker sites and people like that. So the thing I was just talking about a second ago with the phone numbers, that has been worth every penny alone, okay? Literally, you can go in there and be like, take me off, take me off, take me off, take me off, and you see a difference. Now, mind you, you know how these services are, these robocalls, they change them or whatever. So I have found that like with Aura, it has helped me to combat it in the waves that it comes in and then it goes away, right? I can't imagine without them. Now with the identity theft protection, Aura will monitor your personal information, sensitive information. We're talking about, social security numbers, think in those terms. Now they'll look at this across the dark web, public records, and they will give alerts for potential threats. Now each account includes coverage for up to 5 adults, okay? Offering $1 million per person in identity theft insurance and a total of $5 million in coverage for eligible losses and fees. Now their financial fraud protection sends instant alerts if your credit file is compromised. We're talking unauthorized credit card charges, loan applications, things like this. And the beauty of it too, you can lock down your Experian with a click of a button, single tap. Now, Aura's VPN ensures your internet connection is secure with military-grade encryption. This blocks scam and phishing sites. It gives you access to 100+ virtual locations for safe global browsing. And their antivirus software defends against various malware threats and is compatible with Android PC and Mac. And another huge bonus, their password manager, y'all, it saves all that stuff for you. It's super locked down. It's like, the military practically. Y'all, do you know how much I need that? I am a hot mess express with passwords. This has been a lifesaver. And here's the best thing of it all. All that stuff, all that running around crazy stuff I was doing over my little panic attacks over everything, y'all, all that stuff can be done at one place with a click of a button and for a very low price. With Aura, I don't have to leave myself, my family, my Sofa Squad, my family, vulnerable and just out there in the wilderness, okay? And they're making sure that you can do that too. So they are going to hook us up as they always do here at the Sofa Squad, right? We love them for that. If you go to aura.com/reportinglive, they're gonna give you 2 free weeks. What can I do in those 2 free weeks, Paul? Well, you can see what all is out there, Simmy. That's going to be enough time for them to see what's out there, what's been exposed, and to help you process that and reel it all in. So go ahead and give Aura a try today. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. Sofa's back there. I'm right here. The puppies are sleeping. I hope y'all are doing well. My name's Paul if you're new to the channel. If you're not new to the channel, my name still is Paul. Now, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be revisiting the JonBenet Ramsey case. And specifically about this is going to be like maybe an overview, if you will, of some of my thoughts in the letter. What I've done is I've pulled up the letter so that we're going to read through it. And then I'm going to go over, I might have like 10 like bullet point things of like, these are my things that I come back to with this letter. Now, to give you context of how I'm going about the JonBenet Ramsey case and all this kind of stuff. Number one, I did a video before that was basically like why I haven't talked about the case, which you can get the in-depth, reasonings there. Very quick overview. This case is one such that it's obviously not solved. I'm not sure it ever will be. I do not have a solid opinion on, I'm 100% sold that this person did it. Every time I go down a rabbit hole and theories and this and that, I move over to here and I move over to there. So it's a case that I have revisited and revisited over the years, right? I mean, constantly. I just have never talked about much of this channel, but I've started to do so recently. So don't think that this is a video where I'm trying to say this is the end all be all. I wasn't there. I don't know the family. I wasn't on the grand jury. I wasn't one of the detectives. So know that going into it. I'm really making these to have the conversation and read the comments and all that kind of stuff to talk about some of these, other things that we've all talked about here with the case. Y'all have given me great suggestions as to podcasts and other, things to go look at and watch. Now, these are the top, let's say, content creators that I've been watching recently. This is not the end all be all. These are just the ones that come to my mind. Number one, the Lore Lodge. If immediately go follow them, okay? Not just for the JonBenet Ramsey case, but I love their content. And I love how, I think his name's Aiden, tells the story, right? But he's done some great, or they have done some great content on the JonBenet Ramsey case, specifically dissecting and going through it in relation to that new documentary that came out. Deception Detective, I'm going to be doing some reaction to some of his videos soon. Absolutely love him. Absolutely love his opinions on multiple things. True Crime Rocket Science, major rabbit hole on that right there. They have so much JonBenet Ramsey content. It's well done. It's presented great. It's in small snippets. And also a Normal Family, the podcast. I listened to that on Spotify. Y'all, that you immediately go listen. Okay. Now those are just the ones recently. It's not the end all be all. If y'all know more, drop them in the comments so I can keep going over it. Now, specifically the letter is something that no matter what theory I go down, I always come back to the letter. I will say, even though I'm not like, oh, this person did their solid or whatever, I 100% feel like Patsy wrote this letter. Okay, this is what always circles me back around to that. So knowing that is where I get like, I guess you would have to say that I can't believe the intruder theory. However, I've been sold on some intruder theories. But again, I always come back to the letter. So there's that. Now, if you're somebody who's like, oh, no, I 100% think it, intruder did it. This is the reasons why. A couple of you sent me like some documentaries and whatnot. And I'm going to be reading the books and all that kind of stuff, like Lou Smith stuff, because I know he was like big on It's an Intruder. And I like to hear all these different viewpoints on the case. So that's why I'm doing this. So that being said, just know that that is the context for this. Now, I'm going to also have to go ahead and Christina Randall this video, okay? Because this one is such a divisive case. Please be kind to each other in the comment section. Everyone's been so cool so far. I get everyone's gonna have different opinions and all that type of stuff, so just be kind, be gentle. At the end of the day, a little girl lost her life on what's supposed to be one of the most magical times of year for little kids and whatnot, right? It's heartbreaking, it's sad, and that's at the center of the case. So I know we all have different theories, opinions, and all that. So just, Christina Randall them down there in the comment section. Okay, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's just start off by reading the letter. If you follow this case, this is gonna be old news to you. But it's just going to help me kind of get there, okay? So here we go. Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills, and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure that you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier pickup of your daughter. We're going to come back to that. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for a proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned. We are familiar with law enforcement, countermeasures, and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny, as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good southern common sense of yours. It's up to you now, John. Victory, SBTC. There's that. Now, what I want to do now is I want to go through like the list of things that I've made, okay? And then we're going to revisit a couple of other situations in that letter, okay? Because that's just, we could spend obviously years dissecting each thing, right? But remember, I don't know if I said in the beginning, I ain't no doctor, ain't no lawyer, ain't no body language expert, none of that fancy credentialed stuff, okay? Just a guy with a sofa and some sass. So these are literally just my opinions on all the public information that we all talk about and watch on this case, right? So there's that. Now, these are in no particular order. This isn't like a top 10 list, okay? So, number one, the obvious, written on Patsy's writing pad, okay? That part, I can get past that part if other things were present. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, okay, somebody grabs a writing pad, whatever. That being said, there's also the evidence that shows that there was, where they basically practiced. They started to write, so that part's like, but again, I could get past that if this was isolated and all these other things weren't present. The pen that was used, found in the normal spot. This is getting weird now, right? These are very polite people, okay? So, the location where it was found at the bottom of the stairs, that particular staircase, it was almost like someone in the know had to know that, right? It was such a random place. Like, why would you put it there unless you knew that that was used in that fashion, okay? And no one else is a witness to this but Patsy, right? She's the only one in regard to, I found the letter, it was here, right? The next obviously, the length of the letter, okay? That part is very odd given the context of, okay, if somebody broke in, they clearly didn't write the letter beforehand because they used all the stuff in the house, right? So again, I would expect, and I'm not a law enforcement, I don't deal with these situations every day. I would expect something more like, we will be calling with instructions, we want this much money, make it happen, be at the phone at this time. Something pretty short and sweet, right? The specific number of 118,000 being that number of, John's bonus and all that type stuff. Now, this one I go back and forth with because there is this level, and I think Lou Smith said this too in one of his interviews with somebody. Again, I'll do probably a whole separate video on that one if there's interest in it. That part right there is very weird to me, okay? Very weird to me. Why would they use that? They meaning whoever wrote the letter. Okay, so if we're assuming that it was the family, why be so obvious, right? Why would you be that obvious and using that number that could easily be traced back to you? Secondly, if it's an intruder, why and how would they know that? Now, granted, if they had spent time in the house, they could have been rumbling, they could have known this, they could have known that. This is also public record, so they could have gone and found that, and that could have been a figure and whatnot. So you see where I go with these two things right here. And again, if each of these things are isolated, you can start to be like, oh, well, maybe, but let's look at the number 118. if we didn't have all the, and I haven't even finished my list of stuff yet, already the stuff of it's written on the pad, the pen was over here, they've started to practice, the letter being where it's at, it took them forever to write it. It's like, okay, and now we have this really specific number, right? So there's that part throws me, okay? There's the obvious thing of there's this Ransom letter, but JonBenet is in the basement already, right? So it's like, okay, then this makes you say, again, if you're suspended in the belief of we don't know intruder or family, right? If you're suspended in that belief, it's like, okay, well, so then when would they have written the letter? What would make the most sense? Because the letter is creating such this sense of urgency about you need to do exactly as we say. We're all watching you. One wrong move, this is what's going to happen. We need as much money. She's perfectly fine right now. But if you look to the left, we're going to do not only, take her life, but we're telling you how we're going to do it. We're going to behead her. The whole thing about bringing in the experts, and how there were the experts brought in, but then the Ramseys brought their experts in, and still out of all of those, no one was able to fully say it wasn't Patsy. Now, I get that whole, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being it wasn't me, I was a 4.5. There's still the 0.5 though, right? Whereas they could sit here and be like, okay, it definitely wasn't this person. It definitely wasn't that person. Now, for me, when I just, again, no background in this, no nothing, just sofa opinions, that's all, doesn't mean anything. For me, whenever I look at that letter, immediately I'm like, oh, that's either 100% Patsy or someone who sat there and did something to make their writing look very much like hers. Now, again, when you get into this whole thing of like writing analysis and stuff like that, I think it would be very tricky for a person who was like looking through her pad and saying, oh, okay, I know what we'll do. We're going to make whoever's pad this is, so pretend they don't know. Well, they could probably figure out whose pad it was, but regardless, we're going to make her writing look like this person. Well, you know how like an expert can come in and tell when the pen was lifted and put down and all this kind of stuff? You would think that that would just scream out loud to whoever, okay? So that part right there, I'm like, yeah, that's where I just always come back to, it's her handwriting. Okay, now, the letter is so dramatic, okay? And this is where I want to go back over some things, right? Because that's one thing that I can't get past how dramatic the letter is. And again, when I listen to Patsy Ramsey talk, just my opinion, I feel like I can hear her reading this letter out loud. And what I want to do now is just kind of go back through the letter a little bit and talk about some of the things. So like that first line, listen carefully with an exclamation point. Now I saw in some of the research that I was doing looking at True Crime Rocket Science, A Normal Family Podcast, Laura Lodge, Deception, all these, creators and podcasts out there. One of them had made mention of how many times she uses the exclamation point in her normal writing, Patsy. And you do see this here, right? They like using this, okay? On that note, the first line, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. Now, the first book I'm going to be reading, we do a book club over here, is going to be Foreign Faction. Currently, we're finishing up Sherry Frankie's book. A lot of people wanted to start with Foreign Faction, so we're going to do that one. But the Ramseys wrote a book. So many people have, right? The Housekeeper, I really want to read hers. Let me know if y'all have read it. Numerous people have wrote books about this, but we're going to start with the small foreign faction. Yes, that is completely bizarre to me. I don't know why, if they were a small foreign faction, they would say this. This part throws me, okay? And then when I put myself in the shoes of Patsy writing it, and again, we're not even getting into motivations right now. If you're going to go down the rabbit hole of Patsy wrote it, well, then you get into the whodunit. Is it just Patsy writing it, or is John sitting there next to her helping her do it? Like, oh my God, what do we do? You see where I'm going with that? So we're just isolated in the fact that we think Patsy did it, right? So the small foreign faction thing, I get. It's like, with John's business and the whole 9 yards and the defense thing, and I get it, but it's still out there, okay? And then the next line, we respect your business, but not the country that it serves. Again, if we're looking at this being Patsy, it's like a cheesy movie being written, right? But if it's truly a small foreign faction that's wanting to retaliate against him for something, and then the Ramsey, no one in the household had anything to do with it, then why would you call yourself out like that? It seems odd to me. But again, I'm not versed in deciphering these things, right? These are just sofa opinions. Now it says, we have your daughter in our possession. If you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. Okay, now for me, Just hearing Patsy talk, that first thing where she ends it, or I'm sorry, where whoever ends it, you must follow our instructions to the letter. For me, I can hear her absolutely saying that. Like, to me, that sounds very Patsy Ramsey. But did I know her in real life? No, so there's that. Okay, now we get into the whole money thing. The $118,000, the $100,000 will be in $100 bills and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Just that alone. Now, a normal family podcast on Spotify did a whole episode dedicated to the letter. I might do like separate videos, like I said, specifically talking about some of the different content creators, like theories and whatnot, because they brought up so many good points. And essentially what they were talking about in theirs is that they were like, their opinion was that this letter was meant to get John out of the house and to create time. So when you read this right here, this first thing, the $118,000 and 100 grand in $100 bills and 18 grand in $20 bills, like your first thing is, that's so weird, number one. Number two, that's going to take a long time, right? Just that request right there. Like, come on. Now, the next thing, which Lou Smith says, which, you know, in an interview or whatever, when he's being interviewed, I think by Katie Couric or somebody, and they talk about this dollar amount, and he's saying, like, this is a sophisticated letter, you know, and he's like, why would the parents put something so obvious that circles right back to them in the letter? Which I agree, okay? What Katie's thing is like to cover up what they did. And I agree with that too, okay? Now, if it's truly an intruder or somebody from the public who's been following them and knows, they know what John's bonus is, they know this, they know that. Okay, there's that, but it's still odd. This is so bizarre and specific, right? Now, the next thing, make sure you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. That, who says that? Honestly, okay? And I don't know, like, to me, and again, I can sit here being like, seeing Patsy being like, what would a small foreign faction say? They would call a briefcase an attaché. That's right. It's dramatic, it's extra, and, you know, she seems like that kind of person, right? Now, I don't know her personally. Again, I'll say it 100 times. But just the use of that word seems so contrived. It does not seem natural at all in this context, okay? Now, then it says, you know, when you get home, you put the money in a brown paper bag. I'll call you between 8 and 10 tomorrow to instruct you on delivery. Now, we already know from watching several things that this 8 to 10 just came and went, right? There was no concern about it. There was no nothing. It was just like, very weird, right? The brown paper bag, this is very cliche to me. Well, then when we get in this, the delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. Now, that part right there, I've seen a lot of people talking about, you know, that's a motherly thing, saying you need to be rested and whatnot. I don't understand why an intruder or someone outside the family would say this, right? Oh, it's going to be exhausting, so make sure that you're rested. It's like our daughter's missing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it seems pointless for the intruder to write that. Let's continue. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence an earlier pickup of your daughter. That sentence is exhausting, but also their use of like, oh, go get the money early, we might get her back to you, but. So they're like wanting this money, right? Like, this is what this is telling me. They want the money. They want that. Now, again, I believe it was a Normal Family podcast said that this, basically their whole thing too was this letter is geared at getting Mr. Ramsey out of the house. Right? And I can completely see that here. This whole thing of go get the specific amount, we need it in these specific numbers. And hey, guess what? We're monitoring you. So if we see you kind of going early or whatever and getting this money early, we might do this earlier. So you need to hurry and go. You know, this is what this is saying. And I completely agree with that. That 100% is giving that energy. Now, the next little paragraph, you know, any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You'll also be denied her remains for a proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Again, just this threat, which these are movie cliche type things. Of course you expect this kind of a threat when you're talking about a ransom. Like, if you don't do this, if I see the cops involved, you know, they're getting it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just like cheesy movie stuff. This is when we get into the other thing. There are several alleged quotes to movies or extracted from movies in here. We're getting into some of them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as the police, FBI, will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to a stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electric devices, and if any are found, she dies. So that whole thing, like, yes, they're citing movies and whatnot that this is pulled from. And now some of it is specific. This one in general, I'm a little bit like, you know, that's almost just your standard protocol of kidnapper ransom vibe, right? Now, some of the movies they're talking about are Dirty Harry, Ransom, Speed, and I believe Ransom was playing or something like that in the town at the time. And again, this is when you're going like down the level of, was it an intruder? Did somebody break in? Did somebody do this? Where'd they get this information, right? That part of that is very odd to me. Now let's continue on to the next thing. So it says, you can try to deceive us, but be warned, we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. So like that part, again, just kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. It's just weird, right? There's something that just doesn't feel right. And then the next obvious thing would be, well, Paul, I mean, how is a ransom letter supposed to feel? And I don't know. I have never reading one like legit, you know what I'm saying? Like on the receiving end or something. But this seems odd. It seems, again, extra. There's so much extra information put in here. Because given the context that we're supposed to believe that somebody's either hanging out in the house for hours or they've already done something to JonBenet, or, you know, like when are they writing this letter? Have they sat there for hours and doing that? Well, that's such a, I mean, can you imagine breaking into somebody's home and you're going to pull something like this off and you are taking this amount of time and energy to put into something like this? Let's keep going, then we'll kind of round things out. Okay, you and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. This is a big one. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You're not the only fat cat around, so don't think that killing will be difficult. Okay, so this part is reference that don't try and grow a brain, John. I think this one came from the movie Speed, and somebody said something like, you know, don't try and grow a brain, or so obviously it wasn't directed to John, but it's similar. These movie quotes and stuff like that, or cliches, aren't word for word and exact, but they're similar enough to be like, huh. So then you have to ask the question. Let's pause there for one moment to talk about that. Remember, in this time, we don't have Google, we don't have this kind of stuff. So somebody would either have to be carrying this information around with them, and then if it's like, okay, so how would they remember this? If it was Patsy, okay, does she watch all these movies and these were just like in her subconscious that she recalled these? If it was an intruder, were they like a diehard movie person who knew how to do this? Or is this just cliche stuff that people say? And again, I mean, we're not talking about a large amount of people when they're doing ransom letters for someone they're about to unalive, right? I mean, this is a very tiny amount of the population. That's what's bizarre about it. So again, some of the stuff to me is just cliche. Of course, we have in our subconscious things we've seen of like, drop the brown paper bag off at the payphone on 10th Street. You know, that's kind of my time with the payphone thing, but you get where I'm going. Other things are so specific in here, but let's finish it out. Okay, well, hold on, one more thing before we finish out. The don't grow a brain, John. I can 100% in my mind, when I hear that, I hear Patsy saying that. It just sounds like something she would say. You're not the only fat cat around. Like, that's so corny. Honestly, like, the fat cat, like, who says that, right? Even back then, okay? It's just corny and cheesy and cliche. And I can't remember if it was True Crime Rocket Science or one of the people that I've mentioned, I feel like it was them, was talking about the whole aspect of, like, she, me and Patsy, uses these kind of, like, cliche type descriptions in regular speech. And again, once you hear it, you hear it. You know what I mean? Where you're like, yeah, she does. So that very much sounds like Patsy Ramsey. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It's up to you now, John. That is so corny and cheesy. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. Again, for me, I hear Patsy saying those last lines. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good Southern common sense of yours. It's up to you now, John, with the exclamation point, and then victory with the exclamation point, and then SBTC. Now, that's the letter. This is why I always come back to this. So when you isolate each random thing, it can be misconstrued, or not misconstrued, but like you can go different directions with it, right? For me, I just come back down to, I'm sorry, I just feel like Patsy wrote this. It sounds cheesy, it sounds corny, it sounds cliche. It was on her pad, the pen was put back. You know, again, imagine yourself, just suspend reality. You break into someone's home, whatever your motivation is. We don't know if it's gonna be for the daughter or whatever. You break in, you probably don't know how the household operates on some level, one would think. So you choose to stay there for a really long time hiding out. Now, Patsy had said, and people have shown in all these, like where the house is chopped up and somebody could have been staying there and they would have known it. And this is a point to be taken. Yeah, you've seen these shows where like somebody like had some, you know, stranger living in their ceiling and stuff. So you never know, right? And again, without going down the whole theories of like, you know, oh, well, the window was broken out and the suitcase was there, but then her body was found there and then John ran down there first. I might do a whole other video on that, right? I just really want to isolate down to the letter. Those are the top overview things, the letter, that make me always come back to it and that make me reside in Patsy wrote the letter. Why did she write it is a whole other thing. And I might do, again, if people are interested in talking about it here, a video on the different motivations, like the main theories and my opinions on those. Because literally I can go down the rabbit hole on each of them, right? But for the letter specifically, I feel like that is a anchor to the case that will tether you to a train of thought of whether it was an intruder and the family had nothing to do with it, whether it was a cover-up for their younger son, whether it was a cover-up for the dad, whether it was a cover-up for Patsy, whether anyone else knew in the house that it was a cover-up for Patsy. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's many different levels you can go down. John and somebody else, Burke and somebody else, you know, the whole 9 yards. Biggest things here, the pad, the pen, the writing, the weirdness of the letter, the length of the letter, where it was found, the staircase, the dramatics of it. The biggest thing in reading it over and circling back around this case, you know, over and over too, is how much it just sounds like Patsy, but also looks like her handwriting. I mean, there's just some things that I'm like, I'm sorry, this is so similar. It's bizarre, right? So that's it. We're going to leave it at that. I'm dying to know what y'all think. Also, please drop off in the comment section other creators and stuff like that you're like, Paul, you need to go look at this video, or email me. All my stuff's in the description below because I loved the feedback I got from y'all. And I'm just kind of going slowly through the content that y'all are telling me to check out. So that's it. Let me know what you think. I do appreciate you sitting here through the whole video. If you could drop some sofas off in the comment section for me, myself, Rosco and Spirit, the boys who are sleeping, so I have a place to hang out and talk about this case and all the others. And until we meander our way on down to that comment section, I'll see y'all soon. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now, don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Rosco on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.